Anthropic has released Claude Design, a new generative environment running entirely on their Opus 4.7 large language model. Instead of outputting text, this environment translates natural language prompts directly into high-fidelity visual outputs, generating fully interactive landing pages and application prototypes. It is currently operating within Anthropic Labs and is slowly rolling out to users on their $17 a month Pro tier. Historically, web architecture has enforced a strict partition between the visual layout you see on screen and the server-side logic operating in the background. We are now seeing a consolidation of that technology stack. Anthropic is attempting to house both sides of that divide within a single continuous LLM environment. Large language models have expanded beyond generating localized blocks of code to orchestrating integrated software pipelines. Legacy vector-based design software requires users to manually draw shapes, align layers, and define CSS parameters by hand, a methodology that cannot compete with instant generative UI. The market priced in this vulnerability immediately. On the exact day Anthropic launched Claude Design, Figma's stock dropped 7%. This ecosystem approach also absorbs the features of standalone AI component generators like Lovable and V0, making them redundant. To avoid market cannibalization of non-technical graphic design, Anthropic forged a strategic alliance with Canva, integrating the platforms instead of competing directly. While the design and logic phases are experiencing heavy disruption, the tools used for final server deployment remain highly necessary. Vercel, for instance, secures its position at the very end of this newly consolidated generative pipeline. By centralizing the mid-funnel creation process into a single environment, Anthropic leaves only specialized hosting and final deployment as separate steps. The new generative workflow begins simply by describing the target audience and UI requirements in a chat window. Instead of a static image, the model simultaneously generates the HTML, CSS, and layout structures required to render the interface. It also parses existing structures. Users can prompt for a replica of school.com, and it outputs the necessary code blocks. By feeding the model a client's existing URL, it automatically maps their specific typography and color palettes, injecting that exact branding across the newly generated components. The resulting prototypes are not flat concepts. They are fully clickable, navigable wireframes that can be immediately sent out for client review. Development now centers on the high-level curation of generated structures rather than the manual drafting of individual components. Inside Claude Design, the interface is split. The chat history and iteration commands sit on the left, while the live rendering canvas updates in real time on the right. To make localized adjustments to the layout, users rely on a feature called Draw to Edit. Instead of writing highly specific text prompts to target nested elements, a user can physically lasso a specific area of the canvas and instruct the model to reformat only that selected cluster. For overarching changes, the tool relies on a control center known as the Twix panel to manage global design variables. This panel provides immediate toggle control over parameters like component border radius, the spatial density of the layout, and quick swaps of primary brand colors across the entire document. UI iteration is now governed by physical intuition on the canvas and global sliders, eliminating the need to manually audit and adjust individual CSS classes. Generative UI does have an absolute limit. While Claude Design creates visuals, it possesses zero capacity to build databases or write server-side logic. To resolve this, Anthropic engineered the handoff command. This function exports the visual parameters directly into a Visual Studio Code terminal. Claude Code ingests these parameters to understand exactly what backend architecture must be built to support the interface. Operating inside the terminal, Claude Code begins writing the business logic, routing the necessary APIs, and establishing secure connections. If the design requires an enterprise dashboard, Claude Code will automatically integrate external tools like Supabase to handle the user authentication and data storage. This direct handoff mechanism removes the traditional translation gap between designers and developers, fusing both disciplines into a continuous generative motion. In previous workflows, developers had to manually inspect Figma files to extract CSS values. Now, the design tool outputs code-ready style sheets automatically. This chart compares historical and modern development timelines. Creating a minimum viable product traditionally required weeks of engineering just to translate flat designs into working React components. Under the new generative standard, full-stack implementations of complex dashboards are achieved in a single day. The time to market for bespoke software tools has collapsed, compressing the traditional software production timeline. These technical efficiencies translate directly into new market values for freelancers deploying this specific stack. On the lower end of the market, a developer can produce a client-branded landing page in 2 to 3 hours, commanding fees between $300 and $800. At the premium tier, delivering fully functional MVP applications, complete with databases, takes under 48 hours and bills between $1,500 and $4,000. To access these pipelines, users initialize Claude Design by selecting one of 3 primary environments: Prototype for web applications, Template for pre-existing structures, or the Slide option. The Slide environment is specifically optimized for rapidly generating automated pitch decks and corporate presentations. Because technical coding execution is no longer a bottleneck, the economic premium in software development now belongs entirely to those with clarity of product vision and systems architecture.